Hi. So today in this session we are going to discuss how do you actually have a very stress-free interview. And when I talk about interview, which I mean is a job interview, right? And how do I improve my chances of succeeding in an interview? Some people believe that interviewing is very easy, right? People are going to ask me about myself and I already know all the facts. So why do I need to prepare? But sometimes we forget that knowing the facts is one thing, and ability to present it in a way that the other guy understands your strengths and can match it to the job requirement is something else, and hence it requires preparation. Interviews normally comes in two different formats. The first one would be a face-to-face interview. That's a bit informal at times, and you'll see there is one interviewer, one interviewee talking in a slightly informal way. And the second type of interview would be a panel interview where you'll be facing multiple people sitting in front of you and asking you questions. Whichever type of interview you're facing, the tips that we're going to discuss today is going to remain helpful for you. So before we start to figure out that how do I prepare for an interview, it's important to figure out what is an employer wanting to see in a candidate while he's evaluating him. Employers are looking for good and smart candidates who actually fit into the role. So they have a role in mind, they have a job profile in mind, and they have the image of an ideal candidate in their minds. And they're looking for a candidate who ultimately fits that role well. And when they're looking at multiple such capabilities, I look at two important criteria that they're looking for. The first one is competence, and second one is character. Competence, which means whether you are smart, whether you can talk well, whether you have the right skills for that particular job, do you have the ability to take stress, what type of a team player are you? All of these are stuff that they're looking at from a competence perspective, and they are also looking at your character in terms of enthusiasm, your integrity, your honesty, your team spirit, all of these. And they're going to combine these two things and ultimately figure out whether you are the best candidate who should be taken for this particular position. Right. So while you prepare for that, it's important for you to figure out that how do I prepare for the job role that I'm going for the interview for. So there are a few things that you need to prepare for while you go for an interview. First thing to do is to ensure that you have a very well written CV. So as you go for the interview, it's important to have a right type of CV in your hand. And so for some of you who do not know what's the ideal CV looking like, do use the Learningo app. There is a facility inside to create your own resume, and you can use that facility to create multiple types of CVs for yourself. But the important thing when you present your CV for a particular job position, you have to ensure that you are being able to link the CV to a purpose. You should know clearly in your mind that the interviewer is actually looking out for a particular candidate in mind. He has some job profile in mind, and he has the picture of an ideal candidate in his mind, and he's looking for somebody who actually fits that role. Does your CV talk about those strengths that you have and possess which makes you the ideal candidate? Right? So for example, if you're looking for a job as a sales representative, does your CV talk about the strengths which make you a great salesperson? Does it talk about your past experience in similar domain? Does it talk about, for example, in case you do not have early experience and you're a fresher, does it talk about your skills that you have, which makes you an ideal salesperson? Right? So your CV has to be well written, number one, and you have to verify before submitting it for a particular job whether it meets the requirement of that particular job, right? Number one is the CV. Second thing that you must do is you must do some research about the company where you are actually appearing the job interview for. So go to the website and look out for generic information, the industry, the problems that the industry is facing these days, the new advancement which has happened in this particular company. Have they opened up new offices? Have they launched new products? What type of the management do they have? What type of culture do they have? These are the stuff that you must read about. You don't need to memorize all of these though, but you should know them while you appear for the interview, and that makes you well prepared. Do remember to bring in extra printed resumes for the interview, right? Because you do not know while you're going for the interview whether you're going to face a 1:1 interview or you're going to face a panel interview. And in case you face a panel interview, you should be able to present one copy of your CV to each one of the panel members, and hence carry extra resumes with you when you go for the interview. On the day of the interview, there are a few things that you must be doing. Number one, just relax, chill out, have a nice bath, drink lots of water, and eat light, and just focus on the purpose, focus on the interview that you're going to attend that particular day. Remember one thing, that the person who is interviewing you has got very limited information about you while the shortlist, right? The shortlisting will be done based on the CV that you submit, and hence you should ensure that your CV is powerful. And number two, the finalization will happen based on how you actually perform during the interview, and hence your performance during the interview is of utmost importance. So remember that those two philosophies, they don't know anything about you, they will have very limited information about you, so how you perform during the interview is very, very important and critical. Performance is a parameter of multiple things. Number one, how do you dress up? The dress code is important. So when you go for a job interview, ensure that you come in a proper formal dressed up, right? Your corporates do not expect you to come in a funky t-shirt or a torn jeans or something written here. So they would expect an employee in the organization, and depending on the culture of the organization where you're going for your interview, you should be appropriately dressed. So for men or for boys, it's important to wear a formal shirt, formal trouser, depending on the position, a jacket for example. And for women and for girls, it's important to possibly wear a formal western wear or possibly a salwar kurta or a sari, right? So you go formally dressed for interview. That shows your seriousness in the purpose that you have gone there for, right? Wear something which is comfortable for you, not very tight, not very loose. Wear very simple accessories. Do not overdeck yourself. Simple accessories. If you're wearing earrings, for example, wear simple accessories, a simple looking watch, for example, right? And you should ensure that your personality looks attractive. So you create a personality by for how you dress up, for example, and also by various other factors. For example, how you smell. You shouldn't be throwing out body odor, for example, right? So use a little bit of perfume to ensure that you are smelling well that day, and that makes your personality pleasing, and the interviewer knows that you are actually eager for this position and you have come prepared. So when you reach the venue, what do you start doing? Do remember that your interview has started the moment you have entered the office of the company. Right? From the time you have entered the reception, you are being watched. Most organizations today have CCTV recordings, right? Somebody or the other must be watching you, your behavior while you've entered the premises of the company. So remember that fundamentally, and remember that though you're not sitting in front of somebody, your interview is actually started off. So greet the receptionist once you go there and explain the purpose why you are there, right? So tell her that you have come for an interview, you have been called at a particular time, and she would necessarily pass the information inside while you actually sit down on the couch and rest for some time. Ensure that while you are actually waiting for you to be called inside, you are still being watched. So avoid speaking loudly on your phone. Do not fight with anybody. Do not argue with your friend on the phone at that point in time, right? All of these are avoidable because you don't want to be caught fighting with somebody else while you have come for a job interview. Avoid taking calls if they are not urgent or important. Right? There are chances that you will be offered water, tea and coffee while you're waiting there. You can definitely express your choice, but my sincere advice is avoid taking biscuits or cookies, because they typically, you have crumbs all over and they start soiling your dress. Doesn't look nice. So even if you're tempted to pick up those biscuits, try avoiding that. And once the office boy has come and given you the cup of tea, remember to thank him for that particular purpose, because you are being watched all the time. Because the mannerisms that you showcase while you're still waiting actually talks about your culture, from you come from, and all of these goes into making your complete impression. Now that you have been called inside for the interview, right? So walk in with your confident gait. You know that you are well prepared, right? And once you're well prepared, you don't need to worry. So what happens, for example, if you go to a friend's party, right, and you know that you are supposed to sing a song and you've been told in advance, so what do? You actually select your song in advance, you rehearse, you practice it, you play your karaoke, and the day you have to sing, you're not nervous anymore, because you have practiced just so many times, you actually know how to do it. Similarly, you have to ensure that if you're well prepared for the interview, you're not nervous anymore, and hence, while you walk in, you have to ensure that you walk with a confident gait. Once you reach the room where you're supposed to be interviewed, knock on the door and then open the door, so that the person inside know that you're sensitive to certain confidentiality, that in case they're discussing something confidential, just don't walk in. Knock and then open the door and ask if you should be coming in. Right? If you get the permission, just walk in, but still go and shake hands with people. Right? A confident handshake tells a lot about you. Shake hands confidently and say, hey, I am Shantanu. Right? But once having shaken hands, do not sit till the time you are asked to sit down. And if for some moment, for some reason, those guys forget to tell you to sit, and you have been standing there for quite some time, there's no harm in you asking, sir, may I take the seat? And I'm sure they will ask you to sit down, and that's the time you need to sit down. When you sit down, it's important to maintain a confident posture. Don't slouch, right? Don't slouch. Don't overbend someone's side. Sit straight. Take a confident posture. Lean slightly forward. It shows that you're eager, right? Once you lean forward, it says that I'm eager to listen to what you're saying and I'm paying attention to you. Ensure that your mobile phone is not ringing during your interviews, right? Either switch it off, or if you can't switch it off, place it on silent mode. Do not take calls. So while you sit erect and you have leaned slightly towards the front, maintain eye contact. Maintain eye contact. Do look at the people who are supposed to be interviewing you. And if you're sitting in front of a panel where there are multiple people who are supposed to interview you, do look at each one of them. Do not put importance only on one person. Everybody is important, because everybody's opinion would be taken before they finalize the candidate. So pay equal attention to everybody. One thing that I have been advising to every single candidate is the biggest thing that you can wear during interview is your smile, right? Maintain a small smile. Shouldn't look artificial, but then you should maintain a smile. Reason is, a smile gives a positive rays out of your face, talks about your friendly nature, and it sets a tone for discussion between you and the interviewer, which is more friendly. And if you maintain a very grim face, as if it looks like a defensive posture, I'm here to fight out any question that you want from me, right? That's not the message that you want to give them. So it's a friendly discussion. You want to know about me. I'm here to explain about myself, my strengths and my weaknesses, and hence I maintain a friendly smile that makes a lot of sense and gives out positivity out of you. There are certain do's and don'ts during interviews, and you must remember them. Number one, do not crack jokes, right? Interviews are not the places where you showcase your humorous side, right? Don't crack jokes. Don't throw shairis on people. Nobody appreciates that during interview. And again, if you are offered tea and coffee, if you actually want to have them, go ahead and accept it, but then my advice is do not accept biscuits or cookies and those solid stuff, because you start becoming clumsy with them and you have crumbs all over in your lips, on your dresses. It doesn't look nice, so it's better avoidable, right? My sincere advice, another one, is do not argue. Do not argue during an interview. There is possibility that you have a point of view and the interviewer has a separate point of view. If you sincerely believe that your point of view is different from that of the interviewer, you can actually state your point of view, saying that, sir, I appreciate what you're saying, but then I have a different point of view. Express your point of view and just stop there. You don't need to argue or don't need to prove a point there, right? Next thing to remember, during an interview, do not lie, do not bluff. It does not work. Please understand that interviewers are sharp people. They have been interviewing people multiple times every day, and they can catch your bluff. And if they figure out at any single point of time that you're lying or bluffing, even if they find you greatly capable, they're going to strike you off because you will be taken as loose on your character. Do not lie, do not bluff. If you do not know a particular topic, there's no harm. You can actually go ahead and say that, I'm sorry, sir, I am not an expert on this particular topic, or I have very little knowledge on this particular topic. There's no harm in saying that. There's no harm in accepting, in case you don't have a particular skill, to say that I do not have a particular skill, rather than trying to showcase or act as if you have the skill which you actually do not have, right? Do not lie, do not bluff. And try avoiding talking on topics where you do not have in-depth understanding of those topics. And for example, if you do not understand Indian politics well, do not extend those discussions and do not get into that trap. Few more things. For example, when being asked about your previous organization or your past colleagues, try to ensure that you do not talk negatively about your past organizations or your earlier colleagues or your earlier bosses. People take it very, very, very negatively, and they do not appreciate any employee talking bad about his past organization. You could have had a tiff, there could have been heartburns while you left the other organization, but then you're not supposed to backbite, not supposed to bitch about the organization where you've actually worked earlier, right? Do not talk negatively about your past organizations. And while you are sitting in the interview, show positivity, enthusiasm, showcase the fact that you are actually interested in that particular job. A smile will tell a lot about you. A positive leaning, positive demeanor, a confident posture of sitting, and a slightly bent towards the front shows that you are actually eager and interested, right? A lot of times you'll find that there are questions being asked for you, and you could jolly well answer by yes or a no, but that's actually avoidable. Nobody's asking your opinion on a yes or a no. People want to know more about you, and hence they will ask questions. In case you get questions where even if a yes or a no would suffice, try to explain a bit of details, right? For example, do you like coffee? I said no, but that would not be a great answer. I would possibly say that I actually do not like coffee because I get a headache whenever I have caffeine. Right? So you're explaining the reason why you're saying no, or reason of you saying yes, right? Do not bring up personal issues, family problems, family discussions during your interviews or during any of the questions. So do not discuss that. No employer is interested in figuring out what's happening in your personal life as of now. Now, one thing that I have been talking to you all this while is about preparation. How do you prepare for an interview? And so if you see, during an interview, there are a few questions asked. And if I have to ask you that what are the top 5 questions which have the maximum possibility of being asked, and I can bet that most of you will give me the same answer. So there are a few questions which you can preempt that these are the most probable questions that will be asked, and if you know those questions well, there's no harm in actually preparing for them well, right? So for example, if during a board's examination or during a graduation examination, if you knew which questions would be asked, what would you do? Right? I would have actually gone ahead and memorized those answers and said that as soon as I see those questions on the question paper, I'm just going to vomit the answer. That's it. No applying of brains there on the spot. So similar thing happens with interviews. So there are few questions which you can prepare for in advance, and there's no harm in it, and you need to prepare for them in advance. But then when you talk them out, when you actually speak about those answers, it's important to ensure that you do not make it look like you have come prepared, right? So the acting part is also important. How you present that is important. The knowledge is something that is known to you in advance. So if I have to tell you the top 5 questions that are asked, the first one, which is a no-brainer, right? Most interviewers ask you, tell me about yourself. And that's typically is a question which is an open-ended question that gets the discussion going. It's like a discussion starter, right? I've handled so many interviews, and I see people telling me, sir, my name is Shantanu Rooj, and I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. My father is doing that, and I'm from Hubli. I came. Who is interested? How many brothers or sisters are you? Right? Is that important while I'm evaluating you as a candidate who's fit for this role? Understand that while doing an interview, you are fighting 2 problems. To tell the interviewer that you are a fit candidate for this particular position, and also to tell him that I'm the best candidate if you find multiple fit candidates. Right? So those answers will not get you extra points. So when you are being asked, tell me about yourself, you must use that opportunity to tell all your strengths. Right? And that time I would advise that start with your work experience. So typically, for example, if I'm asked about tell me about yourself, and I would start off saying that there are several things that I could have told you, sir, but then let me start off with my work experience. I have worked in several interesting organizations and have handled multiple challenging roles. The last one that I worked for is a company called ABC, where I actually held the position of a sales executive. I entered them about 3 years back, and I had a very, very interesting career with them. I was given very challenging roles, challenging targets, learned a lot of stuff from there, learned the fundamental of sales from there. I had a very, very interesting boss, and about 3 years that I spent with that organization, the organization actually saw my performance, my commitment to work, and my ability to learn, play as a team member, and I was promoted from a sales executive to a team leader in about 18 months time. And as a team leader, I was given a team of about 3 people. And my focus was one side to ensure that my objectives, my sales targets are met, but the second side also to ensure that I groom up the team members to ensure that I create great salespeople out of my team members, pass on the learning that I have learned while I was a sales executive to them, so that I create a great team. What I'm doing here is I'm telling them about my past experience, telling them about my strengths, and telling them about how I'm a great sales guy, I'm committed, I have focused, I am a team player, I believe in making teams, I believe in creating next line of management, all of these, right? So I'm telling him about my strengths. And then if you still have extra time, you'll start talking about your experience in the organization where you worked prior to your previous one, and you talk about the interesting things that you've done, interesting things that you learned there, and how you grew in that organization by virtue of your performance, by virtue of your attitude and your focus. And that's important. So my suggestion is that this question is asked 95% of the times, and it's better off that you make bullet points about, in case that question is going to ask, which are the answers, what is going to be my answer for that, which are the strengths that I'm going to focus on, right? And prepare an answer script, rehearse it in front of a mirror so that you can talk about it, right? And when you talk about an answer, to ensure that it doesn't look pre-rehearsed, it doesn't look pre-crafted, it's important to ensure that you bring the right type of voice modulation, use your arms and to express in case you feel that it's adding to the communication, give right examples, right? And that makes sure that you're thinking while you're talking, right? So tell me about yourself is the first question. draft your answers, memorize it almost, and come prepared to be answering that question and taking full benefit of that particular question. Don't waste time in that part giving unnecessary information. Prepare written answer, memorize it, know your points, know the flow of your points, examples that you're going to give them, and you're going to make the right first impression, right? Because somebody told me once that, Shantanu, you'd never get the second chance to make the first impression. If the interviewer is impressed by your first answer, you have won 60% of the battle. The rest 40% you will handle. The second question which typically people ask you is, why do you want to join this job? What appeals you in this particular job? And this is a question which is asked many times, multiple times, and you must prepare for this question too. So how I would go ahead and prepare is, I would have a look at the job profile, a job description, right, which was given to me while I was applying for this particular job. And there it's written about what type of a candidate is this company looking for, right? And in my mind, I have to figure out that as a candidate, do I have right strengths, experience, qualification to be able to match the requirements of this particular job? And if I can do that as a homework, I would actually create a script for myself, right? If the job description said that I'm looking for people who are a graduate in management, who have at least 3 years of relevant experience in sales, have done FMCG sales, and is a task-oriented person, has ability to work under stress, all of this is written there, right? So you have to ensure that if this question comes to me, I'm going to ensure that my answer is written such a way that it actually meets 100% of your requirements. So it says that, yes sir, I actually graduated from ABC College in management in the year this, and post which I was fortunate to work for 4 interesting years with 2 different organizations, both doing FMCG sales. And during my tenure of 4 years, I learned multiple things and actually got multiple chances to prove my ability to perform, my ability to remain focused towards my goal, right? Consistently, year on year, I was credited as the best salesperson of the year, and ensuring that I meet my numbers, right? So you have to ensure that your answer talks about your ability to meet the job description. And if you just say that I'm a positive person, I like reading books, like listening to music, I'm hardworking, those are adjectives and nobody is bothered about listening to that. So every time you want to talk about your strength, ensure that you have a right example to showcase how do you know that you have that strength, right? So you're a positive person. How do you know you're a positive person? Do you have an incident to quote which showcases that you're a positive person, right? So the third question which could be coming is, what are your strengths? Very cliched question, but asked often. And some people who are not prepared would go ahead and say that I'm a positive person, I'm a great sales guy, I love working with numbers, I love meeting people, and nobody's interested in that type of an answer, right? Those are adjectives, and because whatever you're saying, you're not proving that. So I don't just want to trust you for words. The best way to talk about your strengths, and that's a question which must be prepared in advance. So take a paper and write down which are the strengths that you want to talk about, right? There could be multiple strengths in you, but then talk about the strengths which are important for this role that you are going for the interview. So for example, if you're going for a job interview of a salesperson, you have to figure out what should be the strength of a sales guy, right? And do you have those strengths? And list down those strengths that you have. And you'll have to ensure that you should have an example to showcase that you have in the past proven that you have those skill sets. For example, I can work under pressure, right? So the answer would be, one of the answers possibly could be saying that, sir, my boss last time told me that I have great ability to work under pressure. And last time, let me quote you a particular incident that happened in the last month of the last financial year, in the March of 2017, we were having our team meetings, and the team leader was actually synthesizing and charting out about where is the entire team vis-a-vis their targets. Whereas I was glad that I had actually met my target in 11 months itself, but overall as a team we realized that we are quite short of our final goals, and that put the team thinking. And my team leader actually came out with a challenge asking that here I'm looking for volunteers who are willing to take up an extra load on themselves in this final month and willing to shoulder my responsibility and see whether my team can meet the targets. And though it was a bit unnerving, but then I took up that challenge and I said that I would want to volunteer to take to try out to figure out if I can do that, and I'm willing to take up that challenge. I actually went back to my clients and spoke to them and tried to figure out in case I could increase their order sizes or I could sell a new product to them. And finally, I'm glad to tell you that I actually did 10% over and above my additional target, which ultimately helped my team to meet their overall goal. There are some more members on my team who did that, but then I also contributed significantly to that, right? So final year of the final month of the year, extra targets to be done. Not a pressure on me because I had done my bit, but from a team perspective, we hadn't done it, and I was wanting to ensure that my team wins. And yeah, that's interesting. And my manager was generous enough to give me a certificate to that effect, right? That's the way possibly I would explain my strength, to work under pressure, to showcase team spirit, to show my leadership skills about how I stand up when the company needs me to. And you have to quote examples in the past, and some people believe that those examples do not exist in my life, and but I'm willing to create an example in my mind, keep it ready, keep it thought about, rehearse it, so that you can speak about it flawlessly, even if it actually hasn't occurred in the past. Even if it hasn't occurred in the past and the interviewer knows about it and can figure it out, but still he knows that you actually can think in that line and you have the ability to actually stand up in an occasion in case it actually comes up in your life, right? In case a situation like that arises in the company, how would you actually behave? What is your thought process? What is your thought pattern? That's the type of message that you would go and give out. The next question which you need to prepare and memorize in advance is, what are your weaknesses? And that's a very tricky question, and you do not know how to answer that weaknesses because we don't love talking about our weakness, right? So what you must do is you need to prepare about it and list down a few weaknesses of yours, even though they are theoretical, which are not important for that particular role, right? For example, the same example of being a salesperson, and I'm asked this question about, tell me about your weaknesses. I would possibly say that so I have this very bad habit of following up, right? So I carry this diary, where every time I talk to my colleague or my manager and we discuss about something that he's going to get back to me or something that he's going to revert to me or come back to me, I actually make a note about it in my diary, and I have a very bad habit of actually reminding him till the time I actually get that particular thing out of that person. It helps me in my job, but then it's annoying to my colleagues at times, and I haven't been able to fight that weakness out. I also have another weakness. Actually, I realized that I'm not a very creative person. So I wanted to become a singer once upon a time, and I also wanted to become an artist, but then I realized that I do not have that creative instinct in me. I actually repent that weakness all my life. But then what I did in my life was ensure that I wanted to be a creative guy, and I brought in all my creativity in my job, in my sales professionalism. And in my job role, I bring in enough creativity to ensure that I always do what I'm expected to, and I have been a winner all this while, right? You have to ensure that your weaknesses, one, doesn't, the interviewer knows that even if you have weaknesses, that does not impact the job role, number one. And number two, it may be weakness to somebody else, but then for me as interviewer, that's a very, very big strength that I'm looking for, right, at times. So you have to think about it, note it down, know exactly which weakness to talk about and how we are going to present it with the right example. That's important. Just do not throw adjectives. In case you have prepared for these questions and you are one of the lucky ones who have been selected or shortlisted, the next question that people are going to ask you is about your package and your salary expectation. And if you have reached that part of the interview, you can be sure that you are being considered very, very seriously. And that's the time the situation flips and you know that you are sitting at a position of strength because you're being asked that question, right? So how do you actually negotiate your package is an interesting art, and you must know that very well. So the risk is that if you quote a particular figure, you risk asking for either too low, more than those guys can afford, or too high than that they can't afford, right? So you do not actually know the range that you should be actually asking. So my sincere advice is, do not ask for a package, do not ask for a number at all. So you'll have to throw that question back on the interviewer to ensure that he throws a number on you, right? So in case he asks you that question, you need to answer it smartly. And one of the possible answers could be, sir, actually considering my experience and my past track record and my educational qualification, the organizations that I worked for, what would you think would be a right fit and a right package for me? Okay. Ask him to quote a number first. And once he has thrown a number on you, you need to be sure in your mind whether that number is within your acceptable range. And in case it's in your acceptable range, you need to ensure that if you want to bargain a bit, you should be able to say that, sir, considering the various things that I've done in the past, and that time quote another example talking about a very good thing that you've done in the past, about some of your strengths, and say that, would you be willing to raise it by another 10%, because I think that would enthuse me so much into this job and ensure that I put 100% in this particular job, right? Though I respect what you're saying, but then would you be willing to revise it by another 10%, right? So then you start asking for, once you're having a base figure and know that it's within your acceptable range, that's the time you start asking for slightly more. Few things to remember while you negotiate is there are multiple things that you should negotiate. It's not only the salary package. You have to figure out what are the benefits that you're going to get. For example, do they provide you health packages, right? What are the work timings? How many days in a week are you going to work? How many leaves are you going to get? All of these are something that you must know while you're negotiating a package. Otherwise, you're not negotiating completely. That's important, right? And having done that, and once you have the interview, all positive, all smiling, confident, because you're well prepared, you're singing the song that you're well rehearsed. Once you've done that, once you've completed the interview, and once you get up from your chair, do shake your hands with all the panel members and do thank them for calling you for that particular position, shortlisting you, right? And do tell them that I'll send you a follow-up mail, sir. And you could ask them what is the next course of action and when should you be expecting a reply from them, right? There's no harm in doing that. At times you may be asked by the interviewer about, do you have questions for me, right? You should have few questions which are clearly drafted, clearly remembered, clearly memorized. Great questions to ask, for example, which should be relevant to that job or relevant to the company. For example, you could ask that, so I have been reading about your company, but then I would love to know from you, what are the challenges that your company is facing at this point in time? And once it tells the challenges, one or two or many, that time again bounce back and talking about some of your strengths and examples in the past, saying that how you can help the company fight out some of those challenges, and hence you're the best candidate. That's what the interview is looking for, and that makes you the perfect candidate. Thank you so much. And I still have about 2 minutes, and I would like to take the questions that people have been typing for. Hold on. So somebody said that I get nervous while communicating, and so advise me, how do I do that? So my suggestion is that if you're prepared well, you won't get nervous. So if somebody suddenly tells me, Shantanu, sing a song, I may get nervous, right? But if I told 7 days back that I have to sing a song, and this particular song, right? And if I've rehearsed it, practiced it so many times, I will not get nervous. So rehearsing, preparing your answers in advance is a key to succeeding in an interview. Just remember that. I'm sure that you'll not feel nervous there. So somebody said that, what should a fresh graduate write as his or her skills while applying for the position? So my suggestion would be that in case you have certain experience while you did your internships, your apprenticeships, or your projects, if you have demonstrated certain skill sets while you did your projects in your college, during your course, during curriculum, do talk about your strengths there. For example, you can talk about your skills either which you demonstrated during education. For example, how you actually consistently got great grades. What do your teachers talk about you, right? How did you handle assignments? How did you handle teamwork when you are in a classroom? All of these is something that as a fresher you should be talking about. Should I follow up with the HR after interview? So while you're concluding the interview, you should be asking the team about when should you be expecting a reply. And if you do not get a reply within that time, it's fair for you to actually follow up with the HR to find out what happened in the interview. Because since you appeared for an interview, you deserve an answer, positive or negative, right? Yeah. Somebody asked me, is it okay to reach early for an interview? Yes, it is. So though I would not advise reaching 1 hour in advance, but then a few minutes in advance is definitely a great strategy. It helps you relax, it helps you understand the environment, meet a few people, and reduces your nervousness. Right? There could be more questions from all of you. In case there are many, you can reach out to me at my email ID shantanu.rooj@schoolguru.in. Do write into me and I'll be glad to answer you. Thank you so much.